We raised $2.83 million. I have over 1.8 million investors I'm able to target with ads, with outreach. We have portfolios with over 100 of these deals that they've invested in. Over the past year, I've had, competitors come in at lower prices, use of AI tools, some of them, lower results.
So Jason, back in the day, you've created 75 different pitch decks to raise $3 million in capital. That experience taught you that other people can't do that, but that raising capital is a place where people thrive or they die. Now, fast forward a little bit, you're in a room working on a campaign for Verizon, and you realize, hey, I'm just one of many. I know that I can create a lot of value of my own, so you get off and start your own growth agency. Now, fast forward today, last year, you've raised over 100 million or over on campaigns alone, right? Tell me a bit about how we got here. Like, what was that aha moment where you started building the agency and it became, you were like, shoot, this is a real business. Like, I have to hire, I have to get systems together. Like, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I came from this world of running major ad campaigns, had experience in the startup space, saw all the inefficiencies there and how so much of an emphasis was placed on raising capital. And the success rates were low at that. I mean, here in Los Angeles, I'd hear great ideas with no eyeballs on them. And it's only a matter of time before the campaigns fizzled out. The companies themselves disappeared. So I'm running these growth marketing campaigns at DNA, and I'm introduced to Reg D 506C, which is an exemption that allows for solicitation of accredited investors. With my advertising partnerships, I'm able to say, hey, I could target high net worth, high household income audiences. We could reach them with ads. We do. We see the first campaign succeed with a very light ad spend. We raised $2.83 million. The founders featured as a Forbes 30 under 30 for energy. It was a company called Rayton Solar, Andrew Yakub, CEO over there. And I realized, hey, we can be of real impact. We could be of real value here. I'm working with these growth stage companies because it's exciting, it's rewarding. I'm not just one of 50 other vendors and told, good job, we'll send out the next RFP to you when ready. We're part of their evolution. And companies fail without this capital. They have these processes that take them away from their core product. So I decided to lean into that, especially as the laws were opening up further with Reg CF, Regulation A Plus, to reach retail investors. And we're one of the top, if not the top groups to do this today. Very important for an agency to have that specialization, that niche. So that was my aha.
So what was it like before? Because from what you're saying, I'm not too familiar with that background. It sounds like before you couldn't reach out to people who wanted to fund companies. And then this rule comes out where they say, hey, it's now allowed.
Yes. So before you were limited to your first degree, second degree networks, different groups do it compliantly. Different groups were doing it in ways that broke the rules, essentially. You're really only supposed to take a success rate if you're a broker dealer, but a founder was able to reach out to their friends, family, maybe second degree connections, networks from there. Now you can run advertising. And with advertising, be very specific on who you're reaching out to. You can run content campaigns, be featured by press. You could have these investors driven to an offering page where a transaction occurs, almost like an e-commerce purchase, even for large, 6-figure, 7-figure investments. So you can drive millions of the right people through an offering page and have that access to capital, go beyond just who in real life, in IRL, as they'd say. And the investors also have access to this deal flow. They could invest in the next unicorn, perhaps. They could get involved in companies where it's a $10 million, $40 million valuation. And then down the line, they're $200 million, multi-billion dollar valuations.
So before you couldn't reach people with ads, right? Now this rule comes out and says you can target investors with advertising to get you money. The first one, you raised 2.8 million. Last year alone, you raised 100 million. And so, how has that changed since the first time you did it? Is it now a lot more than advertising? Are you doing outbound and that kind of stuff, or what does it look like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we were testing things out in 2015 and on those Regulation D campaigns. Programmatic advertising, display banners, got into social advertising from there. We needed to make sure we were running traffic to. We could have a pixel placed as well. Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, went into effect in May of 2016 from there, allowing for solicitation targeting of both retail and accredited investors. So now a brand could target their customer base, even client base if it's B2B, people who follow the industry if it's B2B. Many of the top campaigns have been B2B at that. So it's definitely evolved where at first it was Google, Facebook ads, you could place this pixel, you could get everything in there into Google Analytics, you could see what's occurring. Light content marketing. Founders, issuers were the issuers are the issuers, the companies issuing shares, debt, convertible notes, safes, revenue share, the investment structure. They were very focused on direct response type discussions and results. Still true today, but the case studies have shown if you put out a good content marketing funnel, you're likely going to get a higher conversion rate. If you have a good content strategy that's showcasing momentum, traction, social proof, third-party validation, investor testimonials, publisher appearances, podcast appearances, you're likely going to see a higher conversion rate. So we're managing the social media campaigns, the email newsletter and drip systems, long form content. It seems like everyone now is doing webinars and different types of live pitches and articles and updates. That wasn't part of the discussion in the early days. You also have a volume of financial publishers. Some of them offer email newsletter placements to their investor audience. Others advertising programs or different types of features. There's even publishers that charge the investors for subscriptions to give them deal flow and then handpick issuers to bring in. They don't charge the issuers in that scenario, but that can be a major attributor of traffic. And then larger and larger and larger thought leaders, content creators, celebrities, athletes are involved in the initiative. So being able to point to them goes a lot further as well.
And so what types of companies are doing this? Like I imagine it's startups trying to raise a ton of capital, but there's probably a ton of other types of companies getting in on this.
It's a full spectrum of different industries and verticals at this point. Actually, public companies can run a priced round through Regulation A. Otherwise, it's basically private companies. Early on, it was groups with the community. So you'd see a brewery raise $1 million in 30 days from 300 people, and then become shareholders and have different perks. We work with everyone from influencer networks to SaaS platforms to tunnel boring companies to graphene and other material companies, real estate companies, entertainment projects, a variety of different consumer packaged goods and food and beverage, luggage, anywhere we're targeting investors and taking them down a marketing funnel and telling them all the great reasons that this vertical, this brand is primed for growth. We're generally able to identify where we're getting the best results and do more of what's working from there.
Is that because a lot of folks listening to this are thinking about buying businesses, let's say, or may own a small business, like a HVAC company or like some kind of a small business. Is that an alternative to, is that an easy alternative to lending? Essentially, if you understand digital marketing?
So I wouldn't say it's easy. I would say once
easy is
you
not the right
crack
word,
the
sorry,
code,
but yeah.
there are many advantages for you. No, it's a common misconception. It's perfect that you use that word. I had mentioned before in my research, about 4% of companies get funded offline at the VC angel investor level. On a Reg CF campaign, Reg CF has a lot of data, regulation crowdfunding available around it. You can go on a King's Crowd, get the annual reports, monthly, quarterly, weekly. It's really tied in for investors to be able to see what each company is doing. I would tell you 50% of the issuers for Reg CF are not well equipped, and they have low producing campaigns, 100K, 150K less. That could still be enough for a company offering debt, and let's say it's a restaurant and they just need a bridge to get to the next round, it could still be very useful. The top 10% of issuers on Reg CF raise $1 million or more. Only 1%, a little less than 1%, hit the full 5 million. Happy to say, worked with several of those last year and many of the 7-figure campaigns. When I'm looking at ease of use, it's a test. I look at all growth actions as a test until it's validated with the data. We have assumptions going in. You optimize towards what's working best. You look for opportunities to scale, but you're setting the terms all the way through. You get to set the valuation, the share price.
So,
and once you're looking for, you could do a lot more of it.
So say I own an agency today, so you get digital marketing, right? And say you want to buy a business. Is that a use case, like as an alternative to, say, an SBA loan?
It can be. More commonly, a business will use the funds to acquire more businesses. So as an example, the top Regulation A Plus campaign right now is a company called Rad Intelligence. Jeremy Barnett's their CEO. I'm a big Rad fan, Jeremy fan. We've worked with them on and off for many years. And they've grown from influencer network to influencer AI company to growth AI company, and now holding company, where they have the SaaS development company. They have the influencer network and marketing program. They have these different companies underneath and acquire more agencies, acquire more AI platforms. They're able to use funds and grow accordingly. All documented in their offering page. No private information there. But there are ways to do this, to be able to use the capital to acquire businesses. You would want to look at some of the rules around it. All these companies file paperwork, a Form 1A for Regulation A+, a Form C for Reg CF, Form D. You want to look at which one's the right option for you. You'd want to speak with an accountant and a lawyer around it. I'm really more on the marketing side. But if you're able to reach the right investors and see a high enough conversion rate, there could be many advantages for you. Brad has tens of thousands of investors, worked with Moat Mobile. They have over 57,000 investors. Every time they put out an announcement, they have all different types of people talking about it. They get strategic partnership opportunities, press opportunities from their investor base, not to mention the marketing value itself. So you get far more than just the capital. I wouldn't say every group should use these vehicles. That there's a lot to it, and it has to match your exit strategy. But I would say every group that's doing it should heavily market it.
And so what are the pros and cons? Because what I'm hearing is, hey, Brian, as an individual, I wouldn't do it. But as an agency owner, that maybe if your agency wants to acquire other agencies, or maybe your agency wants to buy on other businesses to bolt on, that could be a vehicle as an alternative to SBA lending. Is that accurate?
Well, in one path, you're looking at a percentage as well as the capital to pay back. In the other scenario, they're predominantly structured around common stock. Could be preferred stock. Again, a lot of different ways to build it out. So the liquidity, the revenue, everything that's coming in is going to be completely different as a result. If you're able to use, let's say, investment crowdfunding for equity, you're using the use of proceeds towards your growth and the revenue that comes in towards your growth. Maybe you have a liquidity event where you're selling the business later, and those shareholders are able to actualize that upside at that point. Other companies structure it to where there's paybacks and revenue share. Others go public, and then the stock is more valuable at that point, generally speaking. So it's much different selling equity than paying back a loan. But you have to be effective at it. Taking the loan, once you're approved, you're getting that capital. You could run one of these campaigns and not see anything substantial come out of it.
Right. So cool. And so you guys have basically figured out how to be the digital marketing engine for people who are raising capital using this method.
Exactly. The same way founders and CEOs were limited by their first degree and second degree networks in the past. Many are limited by who they're driving to the page now. So we've built our own databases. I've done extensive data collection at this point, have over 1.8 million investors I'm able to target with ads, with outreach. Some of them have portfolios with over 100 of these deals that they've invested in. Those individuals are obviously going to respond much differently to these opportunities. So we're able to take all of our learnings, everything they would test, we've likely already tried, at least in most cases, and have our systems, have our audiences, have our experts. My team, they've worked on hundreds of these campaigns, depending on which ones they've been assigned to and how long they've been with us, of course. So they're able to bring that expertise to the table and set up for a stronger level of performance.
Really cool. And so you have this database, you do outbound and advertising, but the way you structure, we chatted a little before, the way you structure your business is very unique too, in that your account teams are both the strategist and a tactician. Tell me a bit about that. What does that mean, and how'd you decide to do that?
Yeah. I remember when it was just me doing the majority of it and my partner working on his accounts, and, our first hires, the oh shoot moments along the way, bringing in our first account managers and then staffing around that where they had writers and distributors and editors and designers, all these different pieces in each account. We were working off pod systems at that point, which I still like, but I found pooled resources for different campaign strategists to be the most effective now. Why? Because they can speak directly with the client at length. Ideation, being able to talk about, what's worked, hasn't worked in the past, what clients like, don't like, and then use that for the strategy creation, the content development from there. Still using those pulled resources for creative design, still being able to send it through an editor, have a content, team member advising on what they're doing, an account director overseeing them. But at the same time, it is really the campaign strategist, campaign quarterback that's bringing it to life. It's funny, you'd think, hey, more team members, this is going to work better. But at one point it was, hey, too many cooks in the kitchen. The team member didn't really understand what was said in last week's conversation. There's documentation around it. This one didn't really know what was ready and to be distributed that day. And I found more holes. I found stuff that was a bit, more generic. And I've been able to see a much higher quality here, which is my focus. Time, I could figure out where to balance it, and I don't charge clients by, an hourly or anything like that, monthly, but what we spend in that month is up to us. The quality, deliverables have to be met. Is the client satisfied with the experience and quality? And then is performance there? Those first two, I have to be able to control every time. The performance could vary campaign to campaign. But again, if it's a strategist that's put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, they're going to be far more committed to doing what it takes to get the performance there versus some of the disconnects I saw with larger teams.
Well, let's dive into this a little more, because I think this is what's super unique. This is one thing that's super unique about you guys, because so you said there's the traditional agency model, which is the pod structure. And you said, hey, no, let's get away from the traditional model and let's do pooled resources. So just to get on the same page, for folks listening, the pod structure is one person is the relationship to the client, and then they have a pod or a team of people in the back who do the thing, right? So if it's ads, the team will actually do the media buying, the creative, etc., and the account manager will be the relationship point between the pod and the client. Tell me a bit about how your pooled resource structure is different than this pod structure and why you decided to go that way.
Yeah, I basically have campaign quarterbacks that are more capable. When I had the pods, I only needed an account manager to be good at this one thing, interfacing with the client as an example. Where now, if they're able to write, if they're able to select the different channels and the media allocations and some of the optimization structures and what's occurring on any of these ad or outreach campaigns. We're running the outreach campaigns directly. We're able to get a lot further. We save time on communications, and we have a closer relatedness with the client. They still have different resources available to them, and I have experts there, but they can do a lighter touch and therefore service more accounts accordingly.
And so, what is a campaign quarterback? So, is that the case where, like, in the old world, it was an account manager who was only responsible for the relationship, and then a team doing the actual execution? And then in this world, you have your campaign quarterback who's responsible for the relationship too, but then is also responsible for the execution. Is that a difference?
Yes. Yes. So in the past, they were setting up a creative request that would have to go to multiple parties. And that works, and I'm sure it does well for many agencies. But instead, they're the ones physically building and distributing from there. So we're saving time with the request, we're saving time with the clarifications and the communications around it, and it pushes them to ask more of these details in those discussions with the client. There are campaign quarterbacks, actually didn't coin the term in my space, that are individuals. And they'll consult on everything going on with the capital raise for these initiatives that we're working on. Many of them will actually create the content and do all these pieces themselves. So I basically, have my ecosystem of full-time employees who are campaign quarterbacks. They have additional resources, as I mentioned, with the creative director, the editor, the content team, media buyer as well. But in the past, if the account manager didn't know how to, pull one day click-through conversion data, from an individual ad set's audience and creative set, then we're waiting to hear back from the media buyer. And then, we have to get in different iteration over to this person on the copywriting side. And I've found far more streamlined approaches for this. And then again, the real reason for me, much better quality.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got in the old model, you had the relationship doer, the relationship owner, and the executionist. Now you need to find someone who holds the relationship and does the execution. So it's like a account manager plus.
Yes.
And yeah, go.
It's all contingent on the right talent.
Yeah. And so what's the trade-offs of the model? Like how do you find that talent?
We've tried many things, everything from recruiters to job posting sites, seeking out more referrals and recommendations. You basically have to, look early, develop relationships. There's that saying of hire slow, fire fast. We've had needs in the past where we thought we just need an account manager, we need more, and we're just staffing, and then that came to affect us in a negative way over time. So developing relationships long term, primarily through referrals and seeking out the right individuals in the industry. Conference appearances, different groups we're a part of, but people who speak the language. We also try to transfer people from different verticals. Even though this is a new space, I found if I'm going into the pool of experts that are already there, I get a lot further.
And so what happened that made you want to switch?
A couple client complaints, stuff that, affects your sleep at night. I care very much about what we do, passionate about it. So you put that energy into something constructive and create the standard operating procedures, the SOPs for hiring and how you're going to, change those up. And it's no longer a rush. It's starting early, building relationships, watching what people do, looking for the right cues and signals, and, preparing for the right time to bring them on. And you'll see people fall off during that, but I'd rather them fall off before they're hired than, once they're internal, and then you have to make a real switch because now you have all this work you have to get assigned very quickly. We've put in the right safety guards. My operations team manages this. I'm typically brought in at the end, but I've found they are really the product, the team. I mean, I have my audience data, I have our, formulas and processes, but without the team members, things fall apart very quickly.
And what did you have to change about the business to bring these folks on? Because it sounds like a complete culture shift, a complete system shift, everything. What were some of the hardest shifts?
I had to train up a few team members to be able to take on more, and that took a while. I had to, put in not just the right educational processes, but the right training programs. Um, there's the system. I learned of I do, we do, you do, where there's, shadowing, combined execution and approach of communications. And then I guess you could say, supervised, where, the trainer's in the background um, before someone's off on their own, and not rushing that, spending enough time. Real learning takes place from repetition. So making sure that that was occurring, not just taking new hires at face value, even with the longer process to court and bring in, needed to make sure they're doing this stuff effectively and had the right, constraints around them should they run into any issues.
Was there any other, like, I imagine there's like comp changes, training changes, culture shift from how you bring folks in. Was any of that a huge headache, or was it, where was the headache?
Managing people is tough. Having, interpersonal communications, even in business setting, is tough. Being able to push people to higher levels, even in the hiring process of, hey, I've only done these things in this vertical before, or I've only worked on these channels before. I don't know how to manage an email marketing campaign. Uh, it was more of those interpersonal discussions to push towards larger goals where the headache really took place.
Gotcha. Um, that makes sense. And so it sounds like it's almost interpersonal development for folks before, before when you had account managers. It sounds like, did you not have as much of a training and like career trajectory and like growth focus during account managers? But now these people are such an integral part of your business. Like, is the growth and training of these people far more valuable?
Yes. And we had good systems before, but if you're not improving your systems, it's only a matter of time before your competitors are operating at better levels and likely taking on more market share than you. So it was looking for ways to, change it up. And in some ways, take steps backwards, but in a smarter way. Again, I really look at an agency, and even that word can be polarizing to some people that you speak to. As the people are the product, they are the talent. So it can be a lot of extra steps to be able to, like you said, build the right, growth structures for team members, be able to explain the why, not just give assignments, be able to have the right constructive conversations when an obstacle happens, because there'll be mistakes, there'll be issues. Anyone who says otherwise is, just putting on a show for you. I work with many other agencies. I work with, high volumes of clients. I see it happen at their offices at times. It's a matter of how you, manage those breakdowns. Breakdowns lead to breakthroughs, and especially with your team members. I had team members that I was unsure how long they were going to last, and they've been with us for over 4 years now. I've had others I was very excited about, and they disappeared rather quickly and underperformed in some cases. So being able to, keep a pulse on it and see what that conversation looks like. Also, we're hybrid at this point. We were in person, full time before COVID, moved to a remote model for the next couple of years, and then hybrid thereafter. Sometimes it's tough to get team members to come in, especially if they're in the greater Los Angeles area, but hour and a half away with traffic, which may mean only a few miles away in some cases. Traffic's pretty bad here, of course, but getting people here and then having the right activities so that there's team building that occurs with whiteboard discussions, different exercises, definitely a team lunch, maybe, after hours type events. But it's very important, I found, for people to, really connect and see better teamwork come out of that. I saw more finger pointing in the past when that didn't exist. I see deeper relationships now and different types of accountability.
Interesting. And so post that transformation, what are you guys focused on now? Like, what's the next transformation to get you to the next stage?
Well, it's important to keep a close eye on the market. Over the past year, I've had, competitors come in at lower prices, use of AI tools, Some of these put out, poor quality, some of them, lower results, but figuring out where the evolutions are taking place, what we're adopting into our systems, has to be better than human if we're going to be using a tool to replace activities a human would be doing. So I'm very strict about how we set that up because the clients don't care if we're spending less time. They care about the quality and, more importantly, the results it produces. So how do we produce better and better results? I believe more and more groups will be looking to digital channels to raise capital and want to make sure the spotlight's on us when that's occurring. So as the market grows, our market share stays consistent or even increases, and we're able to, have different standard operating procedures that allow us to deliver at the same levels, if not better, on an ongoing basis. That's really where, I'm focused.
So finding which systems and new technologies to plug into the business and positioning yourself for for when the focus is heavier on digital marketing.
When the focus is heavier on going to digital channels to raise capital, I still explain to people what investment crowdfunding is every day. It's been over 10 years of doing that. Have good market share right now, but need that to grow. In the market, rising tides lift all ships. I could tell you different periods. Let's say in 2020, when the Robinhood investor really emerged and a lot more individuals were transacting at a retail level and what that meant for the space. So more and more of that will happen, and need to make sure we're the strongest option out there.
Yeah, right.
And that our case studies show it. You're only as good as your last home run.
Right, right. Well, cool, Jason. This has been super fun. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn, Jason Fishman, DNA, Marina Del Rey, digitalnicheagency.com is our website. I have an inquiry form there and a long list of podcast webinars. You can also go directly to our YouTube channel of youtube.com/@digitalnicheagency and welcome a warm marketing conversation anytime.
Awesome, awesome. Super fun. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Brian.
Absolutely.